Let me show everyone what happens when charity cases forget their place. Liam Williams's voice carried across the marble ballroom as he raised the crystal glass above Benjamin Daniels' head. The 17-year-old's smirk widened as cranberry juice cascaded down, soaking Benjamin's face and suit jacket while camera phones erupted in flashes. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but it was the laughter that cut deepest, sharp, cruel, entitled. "Perfect," Olivia Williams called out, phone raised to capture every humiliating second. "He looks much more authentic now." Henry Williams appeared beside his wife, champagne glass tilted in mock salute. "Try not to drip on the Italian marble," he said coldly. "These galas weren't designed for your type." Benjamin stood frozen, juice dripping from his chin onto his rented tuxedo. But none of them noticed the man in the dark suit standing motionless by the exit. Michael Daniel, head of security, Benjamin's father, the Williams family's most trusted employee for 15 years. And none of them understood that the silent man they'd overlooked for a decade and a half had just made a decision that would dismantle everything they'd built. Michael's hand moved to his phone. His expression never changed. His fingers scrolled to a contact labeled SSA Richardson FBI and typed 4 words. "I'm ready to talk." Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The security cameras throughout the Harrington estate captured everything. Every angle, every moment, every face. Michael Daniel had installed most of them himself over his 15 years as head of security for Williams Holdings. He knew every blind spot, every timestamp, every backup protocol. What the Williams family never realized was that he'd been watching them just as carefully as he watched for threats. At 45, Michael had perfected the art of invisibility. He was the man who drove their cars to private meetings, who stood silently in corners during sensitive conversations, who managed their security systems and knew every password, every schedule, every dirty secret. He screened their guests, vetted their staff, and protected them from the outside world. He'd watched them cheat on taxes while he filed his honestly. He'd heard them bribe officials while he raised his son to respect the law. He'd seen them destroy competitors' businesses while he worked double shifts to pay for Benjamin's education. He'd observed Liam transform from a sweet child into a cruel teenager, shaped by parents who believed wealth absolved all sins. Michael had stayed because the job paid well, because Benjamin needed opportunities, because he'd told himself everyone makes compromises in their work. But tonight, watching cranberry juice drip down his son's face while these people he'd protected, served, enabled, laughed and filmed and celebrated the humiliation, Michael felt something shift inside him. The evidence he'd been quietly gathering for 15 years, the documentation he'd told himself was just in case, the recordings and emails and financial records he'd preserved in encrypted drives. All of it was about to become the weapon that ended them. The Williams family thought their wealth made them untouchable. They'd forgotten the most dangerous person in any house is the one you never see. And Michael Daniel had been watching everything. 15 years earlier, Michael Daniel had stood in this same ballroom for his final interview. "You understand your role?" Henry Williams had asked, not looking up from his phone. "You're here to be invisible. Effective. Silent." "Yes, sir." My previous head of security thought he was part of the family. Henry's eyes had finally lifted, cold and assessing. "He wasn't. You won't make that mistake." Michael had needed the job desperately. His uncle Thomas had died 3 months earlier. Suicide, after Williams Holdings had systematically destroyed his small manufacturing business through illegal underbidding and stolen contracts. Michael had spent weeks gathering evidence, preparing to sue, until his lawyer explained the reality. Williams had more money for litigation than Michael had for living. "Take the job," his lawyer had advised. "Sometimes you can't beat them. You just survive them." But Michael's father, a postal worker who'd raised him on stories of patience and documentation, had said something different on his deathbed. "Powerful people rewrite history. Working people protect truth. Write it down, Michael. All of it. Someday, truth finds its moment." So Michael had taken the job. And he'd started writing everything down. Now, 15 years later, he had 37 encrypted drives, 400 hours of recordings and 16,000 pages of documentation. Tax fraud. Bribery. Witness intimidation. Contract manipulation. Environmental violations covered up with falsified reports. Every crime committed by people who believed their money made them invisible to justice. And for 12 years, Michael had gathered it alone, methodically, waiting for he didn't know what. Then, 3 years ago, FBI Special Agent Sarah Richardson had approached him in a coffee shop. "We know Williams Holdings is corrupt," she'd said quietly. "We can't prove it. We need someone inside." Michael had stared at her for a long moment, then said, "I have 12 years of evidence already." Richardson's coffee cup had stopped halfway to her lips. "Why?" "My uncle, Thomas Reeves. Williams destroyed his business in 2007. He killed himself. This is about revenge. This is about justice. There's a difference." Richardson had studied him carefully. "Can you be objective? We need a witness, not a vigilante." Michael had pulled out his phone, showing her his documentation system. "I've been objective for 12 years. That's why my evidence is admissible." They'd made him an official informant that day. For 3 years, he'd continued his double life. Trusted security chief on the surface, federal witness underneath. Benjamin had been 14 then, too young to understand. Now he was 17, applying to colleges, dreaming of a future Michael was secretly financing through FBI witness payments. Benjamin had never known about Uncle Thomas. Had never known his father's patient, burning rage. Had never suspected that every "yes, sir," and right away Mr. Williams tasted like poison in Michael's mouth. Until tonight, when juice poured down his son's face and Michael had realized. Benjamin needed to see him act, not just plan. The text to Richardson was already sent. His hand was steady as he pocketed his phone. Across the ballroom, Benjamin's eyes found his father's. The hurt in them was unbearable. But Michael forced himself to remain still, expressionless, the invisible man they expected. "Just a little longer, son. Just a little longer." Benjamin's hands shook as he scrubbed cranberry juice from his face in the estate's marble bathroom. His rented tuxedo was ruined. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. The video was already going viral. "Scholarship kid gets what he deserves. Know your place." LMAO his face. The bathroom door opened. Benjamin expected a friend, a sympathetic server, anyone. Instead, his father walked in, still wearing that infuriating calm expression. "Dad." Benjamin's voice cracked. "Did you see?" "I saw." "Then why aren't you doing anything?" The anger burst out before Benjamin could stop it. "You work for them. You could, I don't know, you could say something, do something, anything." Michael handed his son paper towels, his movements measured. "Sometimes the right response takes time." "Time?" Benjamin's laugh was bitter. "They humiliated me in front of 200 people. It's all over social media. And you're just standing there." "Benjamin. You always choose them over me." The words hung in the air, cruel and cutting. "Every time. You work late for them. You cancel plans for them. You protect them. And when their son does this to me, you do nothing." Michael's jaw tightened, the only crack in his composure. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" Benjamin threw the towels in the trash. "I'm going home. You can stay here and keep protecting the people who think we're trash." He pushed past his father, leaving Michael alone in the bathroom. For a moment, Michael's reflection stared back at him. 15 years of swallowed pride, compromised dignity, patient fury aging him beyond his 45 years. His phone buzzed. "Richardson," received. "How fast can you move?" Michael typed back. "I've been ready for 15 years. Let's end this." The next morning, Michael drove Henry Williams to a private meeting at Williams Holdings headquarters. His hands were steady on the wheel. The wire taped to his chest itched slightly. "Excellent party last night," Henry said from the back seat, scrolling through his phone. "Preston really is growing into himself. Takes initiative." "Yes, sir." The words were ash in Michael's mouth. "That scholarship boy, what's his name? Benjamin? He needed that lesson. We're generous enough to let these people into our spaces. They should show gratitude." Michael's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. In his earpiece, Richardson's voice was calm. "Stay focused. We need the meeting." The conference room on the 50th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Michael took his position by the door, invisible as always, while Henry met with a city council member. "The environmental report," the council member said nervously. "There are questions." "There won't be questions." Henry's voice went cold. "Not after the contribution I made to your re-election campaign. The permits will be approved. The report will be filed as submitted. But the actual contamination levels are whatever the report says they are." Henry leaned forward. "Do we understand each other, Councilman? Or do I need to have a conversation with your wife about where you were last Tuesday night?" The council member went pale. "We understand each other." Michael's expression never changed. But the wire recorded everything. After the meeting, he drove Henry home, helped him with his briefcase, confirmed the evening schedule. The perfect, invisible servant. That night, Michael met Richardson in an underground parking garage. "That recording is gold," she said, taking the flash drive. "With everything else you've given us, we can move soon." "How soon?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. "We need the warrant paperwork perfect. These people have expensive lawyers." "Make it 1 week." Michael's voice was harder than she'd ever heard it. "My son thinks I'm a coward. I need him to understand before he stops looking at me entirely." Richardson studied him. "This isn't just about your uncle anymore, is it? It's about everyone they've crushed while people like me stood by and watched." Michael's hands clenched. "Including my own son." Benjamin stopped talking to his father. 3 days after the party, they lived in the same apartment like polite strangers. Benjamin left for school early. Came home late. Spent hours in his room with the door closed. Michael tried once. "Son, I know you're hurt. I don't want to talk about it. If you'd just let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you're fine working for people who treat us like we're nothing." Benjamin's eyes were red-rimmed. "I get it, Dad. The job pays well. That's all that matters." Michael almost broke. Almost told him everything. The evidence, the FBI, the plan that was finally coming together after 15 years of patience. But revealing it now could compromise the investigation. Could put Benjamin in danger. So he said nothing, and watched his son pull further away. At school, Benjamin was a ghost. The video had made him infamous. Not sympathetic, but pathetic. The kid who got humiliated while his father watched and did nothing. "Where's your backbone?" someone muttered in the hallway. "Like father, like son," another voice added. "Both servants." Benjamin kept his head down, counted the days until graduation, and tried not to think about how his father had stood there, silent, while Benjamin's dignity dripped onto Italian marble. At home, Michael worked late into the night, adding final details to his documentation. Every page was another nail in the Williams family's coffin. Every recording another count in the indictment. He pulled out an old photo of Uncle Thomas, smiling, proud, standing in front of his factory before Williams Holdings had destroyed him. Before the debt had crushed him. Before he'd written that final note apologizing for being too weak to fight billionaires. "You weren't weak," Michael whispered to the photo. "You just fought alone." "I'm not alone anymore." His phone buzzed. "Richardson," Warrant approved. "We move in 4 days. Saturday night. The charity gala." Michael stared at the message. 4 days. For more days of Benjamin's silence. For more days of swallowing his pride. Then the invisible man would finally be seen. "You're sure about the timing?" Richardson asked during their final planning meeting. Saturday night. Another Williams Foundation gala. Michael spread out the estate blueprints he'd drawn himself. Maximum guests. Maximum cameras. They're announcing a new charity initiative. Henry loves playing philanthropist while he's robbing people blind. "And your son?" Michael's jaw tightened. Benjamin received an invitation. Hand-delivered. "Liam wants him there." "That's cruel, but strategic." Michael's voice was flat. "Liam wants to humiliate him again. Prove the first time wasn't a fluke." "Will Benjamin go?" "No." He swore he'd never set foot in that house again. Michael paused. "Unless I ask him to." Richardson frowned. "Why would you do that?" "Because my son needs to see the ending to this story. He thinks I'm a coward. He needs to understand what real power looks like." "Michael, this is dangerous." "My son is already in danger. He just doesn't know it." Michael's eyes were hard. "The Williams family destroys everyone they touch. Better he sees them fall than spends his life afraid of them." Friday afternoon, Michael came home early. Benjamin was in his room, door closed as always. Michael knocked. "Can we talk?" Silence. "Benjamin. Please." The door cracked open. Benjamin's expression was carefully neutral. "What?" "The Williams family is having another gala tomorrow night. You received an invitation." Benjamin's face went cold. "I'm not going. I know you don't want to. But I'm asking you to trust me." "Trust you?" Benjamin's laugh was sharp. "Dad, you've been working for these people my entire life. You've chosen them over and over. Why would I trust you now?" Michael met his son's eyes. "Because sometimes you have to face the place where you were hurt to take its power away. And because," he paused, choosing words carefully, "because tomorrow night, you'll understand everything." "Understand what?" "Come to the gala. Stay close to me. And watch." Benjamin stared at his father for a long moment. Something in Michael's expression, a hardness Benjamin had never seen before, made him hesitate. "Fine," Benjamin said finally. "But this is the last time, Dad. After tomorrow, I'm done with them. And if you're not, I'm done with you too. Michael nodded slowly. Fair enough. That night, Michael wrote a letter, sealed it in an envelope, left it on Benjamin's pillow with instructions. Open this if something goes wrong tomorrow. I love you. I'm sorry it took so long. Then he went to the Williams estate and installed the final security upgrades. FBI surveillance equipment hidden inside camera housings, audio recorders in light fixtures, signal boosters in the walls. The invisible man building the cage that would trap his employers. Saturday night arrived cold and clear. Benjamin put on another rented tuxedo. This one bought with money he'd earned himself, refusing his father's offer to pay. They drove to the estate in silence. Michael in his security uniform, Benjamin in formal wear, the space between them filled with 15 years of things unsaid. Dad, Benjamin said as they approached the gates. Why are we really here? Michael's hands were steady on the wheel. You'll see. The ballroom was even more crowded than last week. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns, champagne towers. Benjamin's stomach churned as he walked through the doors. Every face seemed to smirk at him. Every whisper felt aimed his direction. Liam spotted him immediately. Well, the charity case came back for more. Benjamin's fists clenched. But before he could respond, his father's hand landed gently on his shoulder. Stay close to me, Michael murmured. No matter what happens. Stay close. Then Michael moved to his position by the entrance, leaving Benjamin standing awkwardly in the center of everything that had humiliated him. Henry Williams took the stage for his speech. Tonight, we celebrate the Williams Foundation's commitment to community advancement. We believe in giving back, in helping those less fortunate understand their potential. The words dripped with condescension. Benjamin felt sick. Then Henry said something that made Michael's spine straighten. Of course, true advancement comes through knowing one's place in society. Order, structure, respect for those who've earned their position through excellence. It was the signal Richardson had been waiting for. The final recorded statement establishing the Williams family's attitude toward lesser people. Michael pulled out his phone, sent a single word. Now. 30 seconds later, car doors slammed outside. Footsteps on marble. Voices raised in official tones. Michael walked to the entrance and opened the doors. FBI agents poured through, warrant papers visible, badges gleaming. The ballroom erupted in confused murmurs. Henry's face went from confusion to anger. What the hell is this? Michael! Stop them! But Michael stepped aside. Agent Richardson walked through, meeting Henry's eyes. Henry Williams, you're under arrest for... She began reading charges. Tax fraud, bribery, intimidation, environmental violations, obstruction of justice. This is ridiculous. Henry's voice boomed. I don't know what you think you have, but... We have 15 years of evidence, Richardson said calmly. Provided by your head of security. Every eye in the room turned to Michael. Henry's face went through several expressions: confusion, understanding, betrayal, rage. Michael? You work for me. I worked for you, Michael said quietly, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. While I watched you destroy lives, cheat systems, buy officials, crush anyone who stood in your way. He stepped forward, no longer invisible, no longer silent. 15 years. I heard every illegal conversation. I recorded every bribe. I documented every crime. You thought I was furniture. I was a witness. Olivia Williams' face had gone pale. But we trusted you. We let you into our home. You let me into your home because you needed someone to open doors and park cars. Michael's voice was steel. You never saw me as a person. That was your mistake. He turned to Liam, who stood frozen, his earlier swagger completely gone. 3 weeks ago, you poured juice on my son. You humiliated him while your parents laughed and filmed. You asked if that was enough to make me quit. Michael's eyes were hard. It wasn't. But it did remind me why I started documenting your family 15 years ago. He looked back at Henry. My uncle Thomas Reeves. You destroyed his business in 2007 through illegal practices. He killed himself. Left behind a wife and 2 kids. You don't remember him, do you? Henry's face was blank. Of course not. He was nobody to you. Just another person in your way. Michael's voice dropped lower. I remember him. And I've spent 15 years making sure you'd never destroy another family. Never crush another person who couldn't fight back. He looked at Richardson. 3 years ago, the FBI asked me to become an official informant. I said yes. Not for money. Not for revenge. For justice. Benjamin stood in the crowd, his mind reeling. His father, his quiet, patient, seemingly passive father, had been doing this all along? Richardson's team moved forward with handcuffs. Henry tried to pull away. Do you know who I am? My lawyers will. Your lawyers will see the evidence and advise you to take a plea deal, Richardson said calmly. We have recordings, documents, emails, financial records. All meticulously preserved. All admissible. All devastating. As agents led Henry toward the exit, he stopped in front of Michael. You betrayed me. No, Michael said quietly. I documented your crimes. There's a difference. I gave you a job. I paid you well. I trusted you. You gave me a job because you needed security. You paid me what the position required. And you trusted me because you thought I was too insignificant to matter. Michael's voice never rose. Every day, I stood in rooms while you discussed illegal deals. Every day, you talked about the help like we couldn't hear. Couldn't understand. Couldn't remember. He stepped closer. The most dangerous person in any room is the one you don't see. You should have seen me, Mr. Williams. You should have remembered that everyone is watching. The media explosion was instantaneous. Phones everywhere captured FBI agents arresting Henry and Olivia Williams in their own ballroom. Liam being escorted out in handcuffs, charges pending, under investigation for his own role in the family business. But the story that dominated every headline was different. Trusted security chief brings down billionaire family after 15-year investigation. The Invisible Man, how a working-class father documented his employer's crimes. From servant to witness, the Michael Daniels story. By Sunday morning, every news network was running footage. Not just the arrests, but the original video of Benjamin's humiliation, now recontextualized. Michael Daniel watched his son get humiliated by the very family he was secretly working to expose, one anchor explained. Imagine the restraint, the patience, the long game. Benjamin watched it all from the apartment, still in shock. His father sat beside him, no longer in a security uniform but in regular clothes. Looking somehow different. Present. You've been doing this since before I was born, Benjamin said finally. Since you were 3. Just after Uncle Thomas died. Why didn't you tell me? Michael was quiet for a long moment. Because I was ashamed. Every day I worked for them, I enabled them. Every yes sir helped them think they were untouchable. Every time I drove Henry to a meeting where he'd bribe someone or threaten someone, I was complicit. But you were gathering evidence. Which I could have given to authorities years ago. But I wanted it to be complete. Irrefutable. Perfect. Michael's voice cracked slightly. I told myself I was being strategic. Really, I was afraid. Afraid they'd get away with it. Afraid I'd lose my job and couldn't support you. Afraid that 15 years of documentation wouldn't be enough. Benjamin processed this. Uncle Thomas. Did I ever meet him? Once. You were 2. He held you and said you had his eyes. Michael pulled out the photo he'd been carrying. He was a good man. Worked hard. Built something from nothing. Then Williams Holdings decided they wanted his contracts. Underbid him illegally. Stole his designs. Destroyed him systematically. And you got a job with them afterward? I needed to understand how they'd done it. How they'd gotten away with it. Michael's jaw tightened. I found out they'd done it to dozens of others. Small business owners. Contractors. Anyone in their way. And no one could touch them. Their lawyers were too good. Their money too vast. So you became their security chief. I became invisible. And invisible people hear everything. Benjamin stared at his father. Really looked at him for the first time in weeks. The juice incident. You didn't do nothing. You did something huge. I accelerated the FBI timeline. We were planning to move in 3 months. After Liam did that to you. Michael's voice hardened. I told Richardson we move now. This week. I wasn't waiting anymore. Because of me? Because of you. Because of Uncle Thomas. Because of everyone they've crushed. Michael met his son's eyes. And because you needed to see that power isn't about money or status. It's about information, patience, and being underestimated. Benjamin was quiet. Then, at school everyone's calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I watched bad people do bad things for 15 years. You documented bad people doing bad things for 15 years. There's a difference. Benjamin used his father's words back at him. Michael almost smiled. Almost. At Williams Holdings headquarters, chaos reigned. Board members scrambled. Investors fled. Stock prices plummeted. The company that Henry Williams had built on cutting corners and buying influence was collapsing under the weight of exposed truth. Williams' lawyers reviewed the evidence and had one word of advice. Plea. We don't plead, Henry snarled from his holding cell. Mr. Williams, they have recordings of you bribing a city council member. Last week, while wearing a wire. The security chief you trusted for 15 years was FBI. There is no defense. Henry's face went purple. That servant is about to put you in federal prison for 20 years. Unless you take the plea. 7 years, cooperation with ongoing investigations, full restitution to victims. It took 3 days for Henry's rage to deflate into reality. He took the plea. Olivia Williams took 1 day. Her lawyer played her the recordings of her laughing while her son humiliated Benjamin. A jury will see this. Take the deal. Liam, being 17, faced different charges. Complicity in his father's schemes. Harassment. His lawyer worked a deal, probation, community service, testimony against his parents. The empire collapsed in a week. The end. Remember to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comment section. Turn on your notification. A new story drops tomorrow.